Hey guys, welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. It is our Week 15 recap episode, our last one of the year.
Pause. You're like, wait, what week is it?
Yeah, what week is it? I almost said 16 for a split second and caught myself.
This is our last recap, though.
It is going to be our last recap episode. After this week, we'll be transitioning into off-season content. We don't do a recap Week 16 because we're not doing 17, so there's nothing to recap.
There are things to recap, but you know what happened. There's just no insight to give you going forward.
Yeah, there's no insight to give you for Week 17. We're going to start transitioning primarily into Dynasty content.
And if you're saying what about Dynasty, believe me, you'll get plenty of that until the draft and after the draft.
Yeah,
Plus
it's about 5 straight months of nothing but Dynasty.
Plus, it's Christmas Eve, and we're traveling, seeing family. So we, as the three of us, need a nice little break from the season.
So, and I hope that you guys survived Week 15. It was a bit of a weird one.
I look pretty good.
Starting with
kind of
Thursday night, going through Saturday with Lamar Miller, on to Sunday with Josh Gordon laying an egg, Jared
Aaron
Goff,
Jones getting hurt,
Zach Ertz, Aaron Jones.
Yeah, you said Zach Ertz.
A lot of egg laying going on. You'd think it was Easter and not Christmas.
Adam Thielen.
Yeah. Though I think we might be able to start our own free-range farm here.
We probably could with everything that laid a dud. And even if it didn't lay a dud, it was probably just okay and not necessarily world-beating unless it was named Marlon Mack or DeAndre Hopkins.
Joe Mixon.
And Dalvin Cook.
And Dalvin Cook.
But yeah, it was an ugly Week 15. We're going to go through and recap all of it. Just spoiler alerts, my recaps are going to be fast because they scored a combined 99 points between the four of them. So we'll get... Hopper, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say mine will also be a little bit on the quick side just because there's not a whole lot. It's pretty defined and nothing amazing going on. It was all pretty meh.
All right.
I have a couple questions, but we should be good.
All right. We are Beerfield FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. If you want to follow the show there, especially as we're starting to head into the off season, there will be announcements, news coming on our Twitter show handle. You get all the can art and all the reviews on Instagram and Untapped. The live streaming will stop after the season, but the recorded versions of the episodes will still be available for you at Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. If you prefer the video version of the content, find that at YouTube. Hit the subscribe version. We're still going to do live streams here through this week and into Sunday.
Also, not too early to pump up the NFL Draft live stream. We'll do some live stream post-draft just for rookie content. You know, it's not going away completely, but it will not be every episode. And we will let you guys know ahead of time when that happens.
Yeah, it's tough to be consistent in terms of when we're recording in the off season.
Likely the live ones are going to be the fun episodes, like, free agency stuff, draft stuff, maybe a couple dynasty stuff, so you guys out there can ask us your questions and things like that, because we're all getting very comfortable with dynasty at this point.
Yep. And as for anyone out there who wants any merchandise, wants to send us beer, wants to hit up us for the Patreon, either DM BeerfieldFF or email beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com. You can pick up a shirt like I'm wearing right now. Dan's got the hat on. And individually, I didn't even shout this out at the beginning. I'm at Nick Sparts. Got Dan Third to my right.
At 30 BFF. What's up, guys?
And Christopher Hopper down at a remote site.
At BFF with you, P's. I hope you guys don't need a whole lot out of Monday night.
Well, Monday night is going to be a giant fucking stress ball for me.
We're going to our first, I guess, question from Jimmy. Ebron, Doug Martin, down by 27. He's got Michael Thomas versus Kamara. How fucked am I, he says.
Probably pretty fucked.
I've seen some crazier shit happen. Yeah, he's on by 27.
And he has to catch up Kamara, too.
Yeah, you're pretty screwed. Other than the fact that I don't think Kamara has a fantastic game. It's probably more floor level, but he's a running back, so you're not going to get a goose egg unless he blows any out.
Yeah, so Hopper, you're saying that the 52-point deficit I have on Dan in our Dynasty League isn't going to be caught up by Kamara?
No, probably not. I'm really holding my breath that there's a lot of Kamara and not a lot of Breeze and Michael Thomas.
Yes. It's going to be a fun night.
Yeah, I'm right there with you for another league. All right, we're going to get to the Brewery preview, but just for this episode, we're going to get through news, recap all the games. Some of those are going to go real quick because it was just duds all around. Talk about some waiver wire guys to target for Week 16, some injuries, and guys that you can now safely cut off your roster because you won't be needing them for your championship week. For all that, though, as always, we got a beer to talk about. And we got one that as soon as I saw the name of it, I was just like, we're getting that on the show immediately. Death by Coconut by Oskar Blues Brewing Company. It's their third time on the show. First time it has not been on a AFC West preview episode. Based out of Denver, Colorado, it's a 6.5% Irish-style porter featuring coconut, chocolate, and more coconut.
Oh, hey, by the way, not related to that, but while we're on the subject of fantasy playoffs, I did clinch a championship game already.
Oh, you had a Week 15 league?
No, I didn't win a championship. I clinched a spot in a championship game. Me and the guy I'm playing have no Monday nighters.
Yeah, and if you check back to the Yanni League, I have a 40-point lead with CMC and Michael Thomas, and he has no players left.
That would count as clinching too. I have one league that is effectively clinched, and then I have one I've effectively lost. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
And then I have 3 that are completely up in the air going into tonight.
I've got 1-1. I'm finally going to get bounced in Scott Fish. I've got 2 more that are up in the air and another one that I'm effectively in on.
All right. Let's go ahead and hit a couple news items here before we get to all the recaps. All right, they did announce that Nick Foles will start week 16, which means Wentz is safely droppable in redraft formats.
Good.
This will get to something we'll talk about later as well, but Packers claimed running back Capri Bibbs off waivers from the Redskins.
Insurance for sure. They were down to nobody.
I didn't realize he was even cut
I didn't either.
until this happened.
I didn't either. Kind of wild that he was, honestly.
Yeah, I hadn't heard he was cut. I just heard he was claimed by the Packers. So I'm like, okay, well, I missed part 1 of that scenario.
Must have just happened then.
Yeah, I didn't miss that part of the scenario.
If he cleared today, they must have, cut him Saturday?
That's it.
Yeah.
That'd have been over the weekend.
Hunter Henry, ACL on the PUP list, returned to Chargers practice on Monday. Probably not relevant for fantasy purposes, but for dynasty purposes, it matters.
And playoff fantasy, for those of you out there that like to play fantasy football into the playoffs.
Addicts.
Well, I probably will be.
I'll probably get on something.
I'm sure Scott Fish will bring back the thing he did last year with the playoffs, so we'll do that again.
And then players declaring. Alex Barnes, running back Kansas State, 22 years old, expected to be a 4th rounder.
Oh, already? Wow.
And then Benny Snell Jr., running back Kentucky, 21. He should be a 2nd or 3rd rounder.
He's got some hype around him.
Don't like things named Benny. Benny Cunningham, Benny Fowler, not fan.
I like Benny and the Jets, but that's fine.
We will probably sing that song more than once when we're watching his tape.
Depends how much we've been drinking.
So we'll be singing it multiple times.
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and get through these game recaps for you guys and get you all prepped for a Beer Fuel Championship in Week 16.
What the hell happened?
All right, we have to go back to Saturday to kick us off, starting off with the Browns at Broncos. Browns 17, Broncos 16. Dan, you look like you're grimacing, so I'm assuming there's a question.
I completely forgot to do this game because I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about Saturday.
Let's help him out.
Well,
did you watch the game or no?
I got home halfway through the game. I watched it with you the second half. Remember?
I got real drunk Saturday. I don't. I was through a bottle of wine by the time you got home.
That's true. You were. All right, we'll start with the Browns here.
So go ahead.
All right, we'll start with the Browns here. Baker Mayfield, 188 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, pick, added 6 rushing yards.
Little off. He was overthrowing a lot of things. Just a little bit excitable. Arm was getting away from himself.
He was terrible in the first half. He was better in the second.
Better in the second half, but he was still overshooting guys.
This is kind of what we've seen from him. This is probably one of the biggest games of the year. Browns are a potential playoff team, depending on how things play out. Hey. Potential, the fact that the Browns were even in a playoff hunt, unlike the Packers.
Well, let me explain the scenario for them to get in.
I don't know. I know what it is. I'm just saying.
It requires a Colts and Titans tie in Week 17.
Hey, that's fine. They still have a better chance to make the playoffs than the Packers do.
That's true.
Good job, Bears-Vikings tag team on that one.
Moving on. Who do they get next week? Who does Cleveland get next week? Cincy. So good matchup for them all around as one of the worst defenses in the league. So you can probably play Baker Mayfield with some confidence.
I'm going to be playing Nick Chubb with some confidence.
Speaking of Nick Chubb, 20 attempts, 100 yards, had one target, didn't catch it. He looked slow to start the game based off of what I saw while checking the stat lines at work. Got it really going in the second half, especially when they were in running down the clock mode.
Very, very encouraging for him next year to see him perform like that against a defense that had been solid against the run.
Yeah, he's going to be a high buy target, I think, for people in the offseason as the Browns get their whole new coaching staff in, probably keep some of the pieces that have been working well for them.
And he'll most likely be hyped up as a second-round pick next year in redraft.
Yep. Someone who was massively hyped, probably by me a little bit too much entering the season. Duke Johnson, again, not a great night. Yeah, he had 5 targets, got 4 of them for 25 yards, had another 28 on the ground. It's been a pretty disappointing for him season. I still don't understand why the Browns gave him a 3-year extension.
Why'd they extend him and then be like, nah, we just want Nick Chubb? I don't get it. Because they didn't give him an insignificant contract extension either. It was decent running back money.
It was like $5 million a year. I think I remember what it was. I think it was 15 over 3. I'm sure.
No, I think that's what Hyde got.
Either way, it was disappointing, but this game again, it's kind of been a highlight of what we saw from him this season. Just more disappointment. Moving on to the receivers here, Landry and Callaway led all the way with 8 and 7 targets respectively. Landry went 3 for 37, didn't do much on his 8 targets. Callaway showed up again. He's been on and off all season long. 5 for 35 and a touchdown on his 7 targets. Rashad Perriman is making contested catches, I guess. I've seen highlights with this lone touchdown catch that he had for 31 yards. Njoku had a decent matchup against the Broncos as they've been pretty bad against tight ends all season. Just 5 targets, 3 caught for 30 yards. Anything to make of the Browns?
I'm impressed by the consistency here when you look at the yardage totals for the receivers. 37, 35, 31, 30, 30.
Something that we've seen from Baker, too. He likes to spread the football around. Especially when he's gotten a lot better and a lot more comfortable in the pocket.
Especially now that they've moved away from the Hugh Jackson offense where it was just focused on Landry all the time. Mayfield isn't forcing it to anybody, which makes it tough from a fantasy aspect, but it's good from his development standpoint.
Yeah, and I have a lot of faith with him and with this receiving core as they start to figure out what they want to do with it. Good matchups for all of them next week, as I said, against Cincinnati. The defense will also be in highly consideration for a streaming matchup. Didn't do too bad for this one. 2 interceptions, 2 sacks. I believe, was it 17 points allowed? Something like that. I don't remember.
16 points allowed.
That was close. Speaking of the Broncos, moving on to them, Case Keenum, 257 yards passing, 2 picks, 1 rushing touchdown on 48 attempts. Browns have been pretty good on and off against quarterbacks, so I'm not surprised. You're probably not going to play him next week, even regardless of who they're playing. He just really isn't a reliable option.
Yeah, not a good week for Keenum.
Yeah. Running game, far more disappointment. Philip Lindsay falls back massively down to earth after his remarkable stretch here. 14 carries, 24 yards on the ground. At least he got more involved in the passing game than what we've normally seen. He has 6 targets, got 4 of them for 20 yards. Royce Freeman wasn't any better. Just 5 touches for 8 yards total.
Not a good week for running backs.
Yeah, hopefully he can bounce back next week against the Raiders.
Get the Raiders.
Some dynasty noteworthiness though with the wide receivers, I guess.
Yeah, you get Deshaun Hamilton led the team, 12 targets, got 7 of them for 46 yards. He got a lot of work later on when I was able to sit down and watch the game. Tim Patrick, another guy that jumped off the board here, 8 targets, got 5 for 65 yards. Both have been very reliable and could give the Broncos some receiver depth entering next season.
Yeah, this is the second good week.
Yeah, it's there's some chances out there. There's going to be some playoff teams who are going to need some of these boom busts or some of these dart throw receivers in a plus matchup against Oakland.
there's opportunity going forward too. And going into week 17, we kind of do a what to watch for anyway. And I think what you watch for here with the Broncos is just watch Deshaun Hamilton, watch Tim Patrick, watch Cortland Sutton, because there's going to be opportunity to be had here, especially if they move on from Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason. And you're going to want to know who to pinpoint.
Especially. Speaking of Cortland Sutton, third in targets amongst the other two receivers. He has 6, got 5 for 42. He's been dealing with an injury, so people out there wondering why he hasn't done much with what he's had. He's been a bit banged up, and plus he's still a pretty raw talent for those out there as well. Matt Lacoste, 6 targets, 4 catches for 43 yards. I don't know how much of a dynasty relevance he has with Jake Butt potentially coming back next season, but he showed up a little bit over his stretch of games here. Defense, again, gets Oakland next week, so there'll be a potential high streaming option. Didn't do a whole lot. 2 turnovers, 2 sacks, 17 points, so pretty much on par with the Browns.
Yeah, not bad at all.
No, that's it.
All right. Last Saturday game was Texans at the Jets. Texans win this one 29-22. Actually, a pretty good game overall. I actually like this one more than the Browns-Broncos game. Hopper, what were your major takeaways on this one?
It was pretty decent. Deshaun Watson gave you an efficient 22-28 for 294, 2 touchdowns. So he was all right. That actually is passable for a very good quarterback this week. He had another 26 on the ground as well. So it's kind of what you'd expect against the Jets, who are not a great defense. He did all right. Lamar Miller broke himself early on. The rest of the running game was completely useless. DeAndre Hopkins is one of few players to actually blow up this week. He got 10 of his 11 targets for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus matchup, so you pretty much expected that for him. Demaryius Thomas did play a solid second fiddle going for 59 yards and 6 receptions. He had volume in this one. So that's kind of what you're looking for with him, especially in the twilight, what I would consider to be the twilight of his career.
Yeah, well, I mean, the issue is just all the red zone targets were going to Hopkins, and it hurt him.
As they
should. And they will in this role. As for the tight ends, they did absolutely nothing, unsurprisingly. On to the Jets. Sam Darnold flashed in this one. He threw for 253, 2 touchdowns, 24-38 passing, no picks. It's just his third game of the season without an interception. His first multi-touchdown, no interception day. Doesn't have a ton of weapons around him. He's still very, very young, but it was encouraging to see.
He was awesome moving around the pocket in this game.
Yeah, we saw that in his college shape too. Houston has a good pass rush, so just something to keep an eye on with Darnold going forward is his development. He could be one of those second or third year breakout guys.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah McGuire was the definitive lead back. He scored, but the overall results were pretty matched. 42 yards on 18 carries, 3 receptions for 29 yards. So the volume was there. If there's no Crowell, there won't be any Crowell. There won't be any more. Whatever his name is, Bilal Powell. So it's McGuire going forward. He's at least going to get the volume. Robbie Anderson was the only wide receiver that really did anything. He's showing good chemistry, though, with Darnold finally. Got 7 of his 11 targets for 96 yards. It's the second game over 75 yards with a touchdown. Robbie Anderson has shown that he can produce. His dynasty value hinges on his ability to do that with Sam Darnold, though. So this is encouraging to see because it hasn't been there for most of the season.
Well, also his ability to not fuck up off the field, too.
And what the Jets do with the receiver position in the offseason.
Right. Plus, we'll see what they do with the position. Like I think Dan might have just said in the offseason.
Yeah, sorry.
Herndon was solid, not spectacular. Got 3 or 4 for 53, no touchdowns.
Hey, I'll take that over a lot of other people this week.
You will take that from a tight end or even a lot of wide receivers or running backs you probably started. And then the Jets pass rush actually did get home a decent amount on this one on Deshaun Watson. 6 sacks, so they were okay if for some reason you started them.
All right. That's all you got?
That's all I got. Cardinals, Falcons beat the Cardinals 40-14. Dan, you got this one.
Yep. Going over to Sunday.
Well, we got a question here from Danny shooting out for some start sits for next week. He's wondering if he should sit David Johnson against in favor of Chris Carson, Melvin Gordon, and Derrick Henry, 1.25 PPR.
What are all the matchups? Week 16 schedule.
Yeah, I gotta look real quick.
Yeah, I've not taken a look at matchups yet for next
we don't
week.
Typically start looking at this until Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
Cardinals have the Rams, they've been pretty good the last 2 weeks against the run.
Well, no, they just let up 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
3 rushing touchdowns, but not a ton of yards.
that was that's more product of the passing game.
So Carson gets the Chiefs.
Carson's an auto, yes, because of the production he's been getting.
Yeah, Carson's getting touches, and he massively produced, and the Chiefs are not fantastic against the run.
And they came out and said about Melvin Gordon that he would have played, likely if the game was on Sunday, not Thursday. So I expect him to be ready to go against Baltimore. Tough matchup.
But you're playing him, I think. There's no way you're not. He's too much of a touchdown guy.
And then Derrick Henry gets the Redskins.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Look good, but Jacksonville's in a weird spot. So
I think you are sitting David Johnson.
I can't believe we got to that point. You sit David Johnson for Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and that matchup with Henry against Washington, coming off of 2 very good games against a team that has been giving it up between the tackles for the last 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then Richard wants to know, in a 2-week championship, I'm down 11. He has Breeze, I have Kamara and CMC tonight. Then we're on to week 2. Basically, he's asking, do you think I will be ahead heading into week 2?
You should more than likely be ahead.
Especially if it's PPR or half PPR.
Road Breeze is, but still, CMC is alone can almost carry a team.
Yeah, you should be ahead or at least be caught up enough to where it's almost dead even going into week 2.
Yeah.
But I think you'll be ahead.
Yeah, I would expect those two to put up probably close to 40 or 45 points in half or full PPR, where Brees is probably in the 20 to 25 point range.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on to the Cardinals game against the Falcons.
Cardinals shouldn't take long.
Cardinals should not take long. The passing game was a complete mess. Rosen, 132 passing yards, 3 turnovers, was rested in quotes / bench from Mike Glennon, 10 of 14, 111 and a touchdown. Rams next week, as we just mentioned, doesn't matter because no one's being played here. David Johnson got off to a hot start. He had an early touchdown to make you all feel warm inside. But then I think he had 14 total touches after, or 13 touches after that. Somewhere on there because he only finished. He only finished with 14 total touches, 101 yards on those, and that touchdown. A good day could have been better if they would have stuck with him.
Yeah, his first drive was nuts, and then he just disappeared.
So I feel like 75% right on my start of the week for him. Speaking of and then moving on to the receiving game, Fitz, NASCAR both saw 8 targets apiece. As usual, NASCAR did shit with his. Fitz turned his into 7 for 82. And then something named Trent Sturfield caught a receiving touchdown from Mike Glennon.
We talked about him last week, too.
That's okay. And then the defense was the town slut because everyone scored. Moving on to the Falcons. Ryan got back to his normal self, 231 passing yards, 18 rushing yards, 3 total touchdowns on 36 attempts. Against the Panthers next week, though on the road, should still be a decent matchup for them. He went 2 for 72 and 2 touchdowns against them in week 2. As for the running game, I will admit here I was roundabout Edo Smith because Tevin Coleman just completely put teams on his back and went ham.
And now Edo Smith's done for the year.
Coleman 1 for 45 total and a touchdown. Smith before I think he got hurt-ish. 11 touches for just 39 yards, so my bad on that. Receiving game was pretty much as usual as it is. Julio 6 for 82 and a touchdown on 8 targets. He did hurt his ribs. They are expecting him to play next week, but just tune back Wednesday and Friday for the for injury.
It's Julio. He's always hurt. He almost always plays.
Oh, I'm just saying here. Ridley and Sanu combined for 13 targets, but for just 72 yards. Sanu should have the favorable matchup next week against the Panthers because he lines up more in the slot, but neither are really trustable for wanting to play next week. Also, Justin Hardy caught the other touchdown pass. Defense was dominant, 6 sacks, 3 turnovers, only 14 points allowed. Road matchup against the Panthers, as mentioned. Do not like it, so I'm not really playing them.
Yep, YOLO started him in this matchup. I will be dropping them immediately.
Yes.
And Hooper gave you the goose egg.
Hooper gave you a goose egg, and that's it.
All right. Up next, I'm going to make this one real fast because the Colts beat the Cowboys 23-0 at home. On the Cowboys side, Elliott had 128 yards with a fumble. Other than that, you just write off everything about this game. Dak was thrown about 5 yards down the field at most. Cooper finished with 4 touches. Gallup didn't catch a single one of his targets. It was just awful. Just throw it all away. It was terrible.
They're bad on the road.
they get the Buccaneers at home next week, so
A lot better matchup.
much better matchup than what we saw here. But the Colts, I went in thinking that there might be some scoring on the Cowboy side in this game. It just wasn't even
That
there.
defense is good. It's a good defense.
If you started Luck, he gave you a great NFL day, but a terrible fantasy one. 192 yards and 27 attempts, no touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks taken. He was literally just going out there and Alex Smithing the shit out of this game.
I survived. Hopefully.
He did miss Hilton twice on what could have been touchdowns. Mack overachieved in a tough matchup, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, did get a fumble. Now he matches up against the Giants defense in week 16. I'm just calling it now. One of us is going to use him as our start of the week.
And then he'll dud. Don't play Marlon back next week.
Dibs.
Dibs.
I won't use him.
Hilton did fine coming off the bad ankle, caught 5 of 8 targets for 85 yards. And then, as I mentioned, Luck missed him twice on big plays. As long as he doesn't suffer a setback, he'll be must start in week 16 like he is every week.
Yeah, every time I looked up, it seemed like he was making another play, so that was encouraging.
Yep. On the opposite side, and speaking of another tight end who I would have rather had Chris Herndon in over, Ebron was a dud. 1 bad drop, had a big play that was called back on a penalty, finished with 1 catch for 8 yards on 3 targets. Ebron giveth, Ebron taketh away.
The Lions, Ebron showed back up.
Defense massively overperformed. 2 takeaways, 3 sacks, and a shutout for an excellent finish, and they get the Giants in week 16, possibly with no Beckham.
Yeah, the defense I called to be good, and then I said we hit this matchup, and I was kind of unsure about that because I'd been calling for the Colts to be like ride them through the championship. But man, did they make me not look dumb.
Yeah,
I think
they were quite excellent. The 2 defenses we kind of shouted out as like stash these were Colts and Titans, and both had excellent semifinals weeks.
Yep.
Both with shutouts, so that's all you can really ask for. Hopper, you're up next with Dolphins versus the Vikings. Vikings kicked the shit out of the Dolphins for the most part, outside of 1 big run by Kalen Ballage, which we have to talk about.
Okay. For the Dolphins, beat up Ryan Tannehill, performed as expected in this one badly. 11 of 24, no touchdowns, no picks. Sacked 9 times.
9 times.
That's a lot.
Yep. As for the running back, Score was hurt in this one. Foot injury, he's likely done for the year. Just 5 carries for 14 yards. Drake saw just 1 rush attempt. Even with the Gore injury, had just 3 receptions for 28 yards. I'm not sure why they don't use it more, but they just don't.
Yeah, something's wrong with Adam Gase because he came out and said it wasn't injury related. I'm like, okay, so your co-tandem, the second running back in that tandem, is the only one left, and he gets 4 touches.
Yeah, you don't play the guy that won the game for you last week. They've done nothing but perform with the touches you give him. And I know it sounds weird. He's averaging over 4.7 yards a carry, but you just don't use him. That doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
As for Kalen Ballage, on the other hand, he was 12 for 123 yards and a touchdown. 1 reception. Most of that 123 yards was on a 75-yard busted play where he got to show his speed off. 48 yards total on his other 11 carries. It's still a solid average, but it's Kalen Ballage. I don't. Yeah. Well, I want to see it and pay close attention to it and see if he's developed any, especially from a vision standpoint, because I saw the big run. It was very much a busted play.
Yeah, you saw his get up and go, but we weren't ever really concerned about that.
I rewatched.
The get up and go was there. It was always the vision at the line that was weird to me.
Yeah, I rewatched the game because I wanted to actually watch it, and it was very hit or miss for him. His vision's still going to be an issue, but like what I liked when I saw from his college tape, I liked his upsides. And I still
on the other side too, that's the only thing you only get better at that from playing.
Yep.
So. As for that's it for the Dolphins. By the way, Kenny Stills was sent back into the pit of misery. Just 3 targets, no receiving option, was over 30 yards.
Yep, Parker had 1 target in this game.
Yeah,
it was bad.
Led with 8, but just 30 yards.
Oof.
As for the Vikings, Kirk Cousins bounced back more like a 25-pound medicine ball bouncing back than a Super Bowl. 14 to 21, 250 yards, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. It's a game where he didn't really need to throw a whole lot, though. And really, with the way quarterbacks perform, that's about standard. You weren't. If you started Cousins, congratulations. If you started somebody over Cousins, you probably weren't too far off either way.
Yep.
As for the running game, Dalvin Cook finally got to showcase what he can do against a bad Miami rush defense. He had 19 touches for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, another 27-yard reception. His highest carry total all season, his most touches since week 1. The peripherals were good. It looks like they're going to give him more touches to finish the season, and he did good things with those.
Yeah, they ran the ball, I think it was an absurd 65% of the time in this game.
It was a little bit of an overcorrection, but I mean, the matchup called for it, so it made sense.
I think it was 34. I think Latavius Murray had 15 for 65 and a touchdown also.
Yep. Yeah, versus 21 pass attempts, so that's about right.
Yep. As for the receivers, Diggs snagged 4 of his 7 targets with 49 yards and a touchdown. Thielen, on the other hand, not great. 2 receptions, 19 yards. He's become kind of boom bust over these last few games. 3 of his last 6 have been under 30 yards. He does have touchdowns in 2 of those games that were under 30 yards, however. He has just one 100-yard game since week 9 when his 8-game 100-yard receiving streak ended. So,
yeah, offense has been a little weird, and they just haven't been forcing him the ball quite as much.
And we knew they were going to go more balanced, so you can't view these two as wide receiver ones as of right now.
Yeah, I called for a correction, but this even beat what I was calling for.
It was massively overcorrected, but it worked for them.
It was. But again, they led most of the way. They were up 21-0 early in the game. They didn't have to throw. They weren't playing from behind at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the tight ends, Tyler Conklin outperformed Kyle Rudolph. Both guys saw 3 targets. Conklin just went for more yards, 53 versus 28. And again, the defense got home 9 times. So pass rush looked good.
All right. Moving on over to Cincinnati, where the Raiders.
No, the Wrangles.
The Wrangles.
We'll just combine
the Bengals wrangled some Raiders. Bengals win this one 30-16, mostly on Joe Mixon getting the ball over and over and over and over and over again.
Yes, but before we get to that, Danny has another question for us. Defense question for next week. He's got the Texans right now, but they're going up against the Eagles. He's a little afraid of Nick Foles. His best other options, it looks like right now, Colts, Packers, and Browns. Wow, Colts get the Giants. We love that matchup already. Browns get Cincinnati, which is another very good matchup. And I haven't seen what the Packers got, but
the Packers have
on the road against the Jets. That's a hell no for me. Colts at home, Browns at home. Probably the Browns if Denzel Ward is playing, because they're probably not going to have Tyler Boyd.
What if the Giants don't have Odell?
That would be the other thing to look at too.
They're pretty even, the Browns and the Colts are. I do like both of them. I think a little bit more than the Texans against the Eagles, just because the Eagles have a good offensive line and kind of the Texans secondary has been suspect, especially against tight ends. So it's like the Eagles match up perfectly against the Texans. So I don't love that one, but the Colts and the Browns are very, very close to me. I think the tiebreaker would be Barkley over Mixon against those defenses.
Since he just lost Tyler Boyd, likely out for the season, too. So
Browns.
I think the Browns. Browns and Colts are both very uneven. It's just Browns play more aggressive, so
I would probably go Browns also. And again, that's just Saquon Barkley can wreck the game. And Zeke is the one thing that did perform against the Colts, and he's more of a game wrecker than what Mixon is.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the Wrangles. We'll start with the Raiders of that side here. Derek Carr, which is met in what should have been a great matchup for him. 263 passing yards, 1 touchdown on 38 attempts. He also lost a fumble. Goes to Denver next week. I still don't like his value on QB leagues, but he's got some. He's worth a look in 2 QB and Superflex.
As somebody who owns Phillip Rivers and doesn't have a whole lot of other options, I'm going to be taking a long, hard look at Derek Carr and Josh Allen next week.
The fact that I like Josh Allen the most out of that.
I may be going in my championship game starting Josh fucking Allen
against the Patriots.
Oh God, Belichick's record against rookie QBs though.
I know I don't like it.
I think he's still stick with Rivers. Anyways, like Carr, the running game should have been a lot better. Martin finished with 9 carries, no catches for 39 total yards. Richard was okay in PPR leagues. He had 5 catches for 76 yards, and he had 4 carries otherwise. I think he had 6 targets on those. with the touches pretty much being equal and the Raiders not knowing what the fuck they want to do, both running backs are considered RB3, RB4 against the Broncos. A better run defense. As for the receivers here, Nelson finished a decent game, 6 for 88 on 8 targets. This makes a third straight game with 7+ targets, 6+ receptions, and 2 of those 3 games he went with 80 or more receiving yards. Hasn't had a touchdown catch since week 5, but he's giving you flex value over these past 3 weeks.
He would have had one if he hadn't messed up in this game. He caught a ball, wasn't down, and then was slow to get up and go to the end zone, and they were able to tackle him at the 2.
Old man Nelson.
Yep.
So he's definitely worth a flex play against the Broncos next week. Aitman and Cook finished with a second in targets with 5 apiece. Both caught 2 of them for right around 20 yards. It's a very disappointing day for Cook because he had a very nice matchup. But Denver's also struggled against tight ends this season, so he should have a nice bounce back matchup for you in the championship week. Defense sucked, allowed 30 points, so had just 1 sack, no turnovers. And a special fuck you to Daniel Carson because he's only missed one attempt since the Raiders signed him.
Mm-hmm.
Bengals, Driscoll was hot garbage again, and I cannot wait for this season then for him to not throw football anymore. 130 passing yards, 32 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick on 33 attempts. He'll get the Browns next week. Last time out, he finished with 155 passing, 9 rushing yards, 2 total touchdowns, no turnovers that last time. So maybe a chance for a repeat performance if you play him in.
I mean, it's going to be
leagues.
a Bengals team that's trying to get their coach fired versus a Browns team that technically still has a playoff
I assume
shot.
it's going to all be Mixon. And then speaking of Mixon, 29 touches, 130 total yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. This mixed 3 of his last 4 games with over 100 total yards. He's had 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. And I wanted to ask a question because the 2017 running backs get talked about so much. But just given from what we saw this season, where would you guys rank Mixon if we were to redo the 2017? You don't have to go into it too much. Just on top of your head.
So if I'm redrafting the 2017 class, he's my 102 again, like he was when we did it initially.
Okay. I suppose.
Just I have a new 101.
I suppose.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with the injury issues that Cook and Fournette have had, and Kareem Hunt being effectively out of the league. Yeah, he might be 103 for me. Kamara and McCaffrey I put ahead of him.
Yeah, I think I would put.
That's probably the more interesting thing is who's the new 101? Would it be?
I would still go
CMC
Kamara.
or Kamara. See, I would almost
because
I thought about
because
this
Ingram's not
earlier.
going to be there next year. They'll bring in somebody else, but I don't think he's going to be. They're going to be as good as Ingram is.
Well, it's not like Ingram's been any good either.
No, that's true, but it'd be real close between those two. Is what CMC's been able to do as a runner this year, and the fact that he's mostly sustained his target volume.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, he went up against the Browns again. He had 150. He had his most yardage on 21 touches. So great matchup for him. The receiving core though, Boyd, Ross, Erickson, and Uzama all had 5 targets. Boyd, before he got hurt, finished 4 for 38 and a touchdown. But as I said earlier, he'll likely get shut down, just given where the season is for them.
He had 1,000 yards and then was like, "I'm done, fam."
It's like I'm done. Lock it up. He is a buy candidate for me in Dynasty leagues, though. So people looking out there looking for a high upside receiver who may not cost a whole lot, Boyd. Nobody else did jack shit with their 5 targets. Defense showed out, though. 3 turnovers, 5 sacks, 16 points allowed. Not going to play them against the Browns, so.
I don't want to talk about how many times I watched Driscoll overthrow Uzama in the end zone. It probably happened all 5 of his fucking targets.
I don't want to ever watch Jeff Driscoll throw a football, so we're good. I'm done.
All right. Up next is Bucks versus the Ravens. This was the highest scoring game I covered. Ravens win this one 20-12. Buccaneers, Winston performance was about how I feared he might perform. 157 yards and an interception on 25 attempts. Game was slowed way down with a lot of rushing from both teams. And then he gets another tough matchup against the Cowboys next week. We kind of called to drop him after week 14, and I'm kind of sticking with that assessment. I don't see a lot of need for him to go out and throw 3 touchdowns next week. If you were crazy enough to start Peyton Barber, though, he gave you 89 yards and a touchdown. And what we just saw happen with the Cowboys this last week with Mac, he may be a low flex option next week if you're super desperate, which a lot of people probably will be.
The Cowboys are home. lot better team at home.
They are. In the passing game, if you started anyone but Mike Evans, you're real sad. He caught 4 for 129 on 9 targets. Humphreys, Brait, and Godwin combined for 32 total yards, 5 receptions on 11 targets.
You shouldn't have even lumped Godwin in there. He didn't do anything.
He had 3 targets, didn't catch a single one.
Topper was right.
Yep. He had 1 play that he actually caught the ball and was pulled back by penalty. Defense did okay. Only allowed 20 points, recovered 2 fumbles and 2 sacks. They've definitely been a much better second half defense than first half defense. They are not the giving up MVP type numbers they were.
They're a bit
early
healthier too. When they got Brent Grimes back, that really helped fix the secondary.
And firing Mike Smith helped too.
That too.
Yep. Defense has been better, and I think they're probably a piece or 2 away from catching up with that offense and making the Bucs a playoff contender at least.
Yep. As mentioned, they finish at the Cowboys to end the season here. On to the Ravens side, where Jackson continues to only produce on the ground, 95 rushing yards on 18 attempts. Just terrible passing, though. 131 yards and a touchdown on 23 attempts. And the touchdown I thought was a run. Like, I didn't realize it was a passing touchdown until Dan read me the stat line later. Because I swear he...
I'm like, yeah, pretty sure he had a passing touchdown.
I swear he handed it off when I watched the replay 5 times. I was pretty hungover, though, so that's my defense. I don't like him against the Chargers next week.
No. I just don't like him.
Edwards got the majority of the work in this one, capitalized on it. 104 yards and 19 carries with a touchdown for a nice finish. Dixon was also heavily involved at 12 touches, finished with 50 yards total. Both could be interesting plays against the Chargers next week, who struggle against running backs real bad.
Yeah, I got to stick with the Gus bust, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Coleman Smith situation where it got cute for 1 week and then it corrected itself.
I mean, the people I was debating Dixon with, I'm glad I started Dixon because they all finished worse.
That works.
Snead was the leading receiver again, finished with 5 for 58 on 6 targets. Andrews was second, caught 2 of 4 for 31 yards. Still better than a lot of other tight ends you could have started, so you're welcome, universe. Everyone else combined for 40 yards on 10 targets. Yes, everyone. Michael Crabtree, John Brown, Hayden Hurst, Nick Boyle combined for 40 yards.
Lamar Jackson, I mean, what else do you expect?
Defense only had 1 sack and 1 turnover, held the Buccaneers to 12 points. Not quite as high as a game you're hoping from them.
They're just not getting a lot of turnovers this year.
Yeah, they've only have 7 interceptions on the season.
Did they get one on Sunday?
Yeah, they got a pick.
That was their first pick since like week 6.
And they finished the season at the Chargers. I'm not going to be wanting to start their defense on the road in LA.
No.
Nope.
All right, Hopper, you got Lions versus the Bills, where Josh Allen manages to orchestrate a 14-13 win. I think it's mostly Matt Prater's fault for this one. Any major takeaways from this game, Hopper?
The Lions suck. Stafford was terrible. 208 yards, 1 touchdown, no sacks. Actually, decent NFL day. 1 touchdown, 208 yards, 22 of 29 passing. For fantasy, it's not 5 straight weeks under 250 yards and just 1 or no touchdowns. They need help.
And the touchdown was early, too. He got shut down in the second half.
They need wide receiver help.
Yep.
He does not have anybody since Golden Tate left that he can count on. Gullet is fine, but you can just fade coverage that way. Also, another note about the Lions receivers, by the way, and I'm not there yet. I think they got the market cornered on receivers named Jones.
Yeah, isn't there another guy named Alex or Aaron?
Andy
Jones.
Yeah, I saw Jones, and I'm like, Jesus, another one? I already can't keep TJ.
Yeah. I think Ian was like, so something called Andy Jones scored, and I'm like, who the fuck is Andy Jones?
So they're like the Chiefs with the Williams at running back.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
And the Chargers.
Yep. On to the running game. Zach Zinner, best one in this one, second straight week. 10 touches, 45 yards, punched in a touchdown. Not fantastic, but you'll take it as a flex play for sure, and a guy you could grab off waivers. It's the second straight week with the touchdown, double-digit carries. Blunt saw just 7 carries for 9 yards.
So he's back to normal.
He's back to normal. It was all right for 47, but not enough receiving work to make him relevant. Kenny Galladay bounced back a bit in this one. Got 7 of his 8 for 146 yards for a pretty good day.
He was making plays. Like, he earned all of those 146 yards.
Good for him. I call him out, he shows up.
Yeah, he did after a couple bad weeks. But he gets the Vikings next week.
Mm-hmm.
And no other receiving option was really worth a mention. That's when Andy Jones got a touchdown, but meh. And the defense couldn't even get Josh Allen to commit a turnover.
Mm-hmm.
On to the Bills. Josh Allen tossed 204 yards and a touchdown. He ran for another one, just 16 yards rushing on the ground, though, kind of what I called that he would not have a fantastic rushing day or a real big blow up. But if you started him, you'll take it, especially with 2 touchdowns. It made him okay. The running back was led by something called Keith. Running backs were led by something called Keith Ford. 14
Rookie out of Texas A&M.
Yeah. 14 to 46. Murphy had to leave at one point. He finished with just 11 carries for 35 yards. So nobody really did anything there.
Murphy led straight to IR. He dislocated his elbow.
Yep. There you go. As for the receiving game, though, Isaiah McKenzie in the slot led in targets in this one. He got 67 for 53 yards. Not a blow-up game, but good to see him getting some target volume and getting involved, I guess. But as predicted by us, Robert Foster, exceptional game. 4 or 5 targets for 108 yards and a touchdown. It's exactly what we were looking for when we said, hey, start him. And when I made him my start of the week.
Yeah, he may have gotten me into the title game when I threw him in my wide receiver slot in my league.
You are welcome.
Yeah, we did like a 10-minute discussion Sunday morning about like desperation dart throw plays for teams who are in bad shape after Saturday, and he came through big.
I'd like to see a little bit more than 5 targets in these games, but hey, he's boom bust.
I would too, but honestly, one of the things that I liked about him as a dart thrower is that he's been over 90 with a touchdown on 3 targets.
Oh yeah.
He's just got that game-breaking speed to where he doesn't need a ton of targets to do it. You'd like him to have some, but to have more target volume. He's big enough to have more target volume, but he's got game-breaking speed as well.
And it matches what Josh Allen is throwing strength is in his game. So
down the field
throwing. So he's bound to at least get 3 or 2 or 3 targets in those.
Yeah. And tight ends, not a thing in Buffalo. I think there's too many wings or something.
And wide ends suck at running routes.
Yep.
All right.
So that's it.
All right. Dan's got Packers going into Chicago to play the Bears. Bears win 24-17. Knock the Packers out of the playoffs. They clinch the division.
Kings of the North.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the Packers here. 274 passing yards and 25 rushing yards. No touchdowns, 1 pick on 42 attempts for Rodgers. While it wasn't the negative game like Goff had last week, still not a good week for Rodgers, as we called it out on the show.
Yeah. The correct answer to my Aaron Rodgers Josh Johnson debate, Josh Johnson.
Yeah. We've gotten to that point with Rodgers, too.
Didn't go with it.
Oh. Well, did you at least make it, or no?
No, it wouldn't have mattered. I finally got caught up to you by injuries and people getting healthy at the wrong time, and it's finally ended me in the championship game of the Archer Division of Scott Fishbowl, and technically I'm still alive, I guess, but I need DJ Moore and Drew Brees to just put up 60 between the two of them.
I mean,
it could happen.
It could. Especially if Moore gets a lot
shot, but it's not like an impossible shot, I guess.
Especially if Moore gets more PJ Williams and Eli Apple than Marshawn Lattimore, he could put up points. All right, anyways, Packers face the Jets in Week 16, so this should be a nice get-right game for Rodgers. He is averaging only 225 passing yards and 1 touchdown per game over his past 4 games. And while his interception rate is insanely low at just 0.4%, he's more of a game manager than your fantasy football QB1. Running game here, Jones looks to have injured his MCL. Didn't do much before he got hurt. I think he just had 8 yards on, 4 carries beforehand. Jamal Williams took over for Jones, finished with a respectable 12 for 55 and a touchdown on the ground. 4 for 42 on 5 targets through the air. So if Jones is to miss time, which is starting to look that way, especially with the Capri rib signing.
It's an MCL strain. He's not playing next week.
That same injury knocked him out 2 games last year because he injured the same MCL. Williams is likely to be considered an RB2 next week against a very beatable Jets defense. Adams was his usual self, 8 for 19, on 13 targets. Randall Cobb was second in targets with 7, finished 3 for 30 on them, so pretty disappointing. Graham was third in targets as we all kind of chalked it up here. He had 5, 3 for 32 on those. ESB, MVS, and Kumaro just had 7 targets apiece, so we kind of know what this receiving order is going into the last week of the season. Cobb, being the new 2 here, or at least looks to be the new 2 here, has a very winnable and flex-worthy matchup against the Jets. Graham, his volume should make him at least passable, but it is a tough tight end defense in New York. Defense didn't do much. 1 turnover, 1 sack, 24 points allowed. Not playing them next week, as Nick pointed out earlier. Moving on to the Bears, Trubisky had a good day. 235 passing yards, 16 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on 28 attempts. It was a very good NFL day. And as I put down there, Philip Rivers would be proud.
It's a very good NFL day, but for what quarterbacks did this week, he's just in that glut of, they're okay if you started them. There wasn't really any quarterback that jumped out as fantastic this week.
I think there wasn't, yeah.
Who's the best? Maybe Matt Ryan?
He had 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, so yeah.
Yeah, Matt Ryan would be my guess. I'll go look it up. Keep talking.
All right. Anyways, they'll get the 49ers at home next week, so very nice upside game for your championship matchup if you decide to roll with Trubisky. Jordan Howard was able to put together another solid game, 20 touches, 75 yards, and a touchdown. This makes 3 straight games with 16-plus carries, and third straight with 25 total yards. He'll have an RB2 up. He'll likely have an RB2 grade for him from me next week in a very nice matchup against the Niners. Cohen, 11 touches, 52 yards, and was able to haul in a receiving touchdown to save his day. Just like Howard, though, he'll get the RB2 ranking with his usual upside, so it could be a nice game overall for them.
Yeah, it was Matt Ryan, but you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that are within 10 points of each other.
So no quarterback really saved you.
So here's the one I like better.
Like Parse.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 quarterbacks scored less than 10 points.
Yeah.
Including Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck was the highest of those at 9.7.
So that means that both Breeze and Dune are going to go fucking ham tonight.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Because we need at least one blow-up QB from this matchup.
There's got to be, because right now there was not one at all.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the receivers here. Keep this rolling. Robinson and Burton led the team with 7 targets apiece. Robinson finished with 3 for 54. It was a good matchup. He's still banged up, so you'll take it. Niners again. You'll probably get Richard Sherman, so I don't know how we all feel about it.
I don't think Sherman shadows.
Well, it doesn't matter. They can, if they want to move people around. We've seen teams who don't normally shadow players anyways. See, Patrick, Peterson against Kenny Galladay 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But either way, Burton finally had a good game when no one wanted to start him. 4 for 36 and a touchdown on his 7 targets. Miller, Goose Egg, and Gabriel just had 3 targets. Defense was good as usual. 1 turnover, 5 sacks, 17 points allowed, and they'll likely be a top 3 defensive play next week against the Niners. That's all.
All right. Let's move on to Titans versus the Giants. Titans win 17-0, which means I don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this. The Titans, Mariota basically didn't need to pass. He blocked more than he passed. 88 yards on 20 attempts, and he probably doesn't need to throw against the Redskins next week either, so just drop his ass. Derrick Henry had well over 50% of the team's total touches with 34. 58 was the total number of offensive plays run.
Jesus Christ.
And he completed a pass on top of it.
Yeah, 34 touches.
34 touches, 33 rushes, and 1 reception.
My God.
That unfortunately made him the only player worth starting in this game. He put up an absurd 170-yard, 2-touchdown game in this one, and you're starting him next week against the Redskins. He is going to single-handedly bring the 5% of teams that made the playoffs with Derrick Henry
if you
to
traded
the title.
for him as a playoff team.
I don't know why the hell you would have, but congratulations.
He was I mean, people probably dropped him.
The only league I have him, I grabbed him on the waiver wires like 2 weeks ago randomly.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of need a running back. Derrick Henry, sure.
After that London game.
And he has single-handedly dragged my ass to a title. Deion Lewis, 10 touches, 44 total yards. he is droppable. He's just not getting enough work. Wide receivers and tight ends combined for 9 reception and 85 total yards. Davis is the only one who's even ownable at this point. Everyone else can be safely cut heading into the championship.
Who are they playing against next week?
Redskins.
Ooh, it's a good matchup. I'd almost cut him just because he's not going to get the volume and let somebody else deal with it.
Yeah, but he might be startable against a terrible secondary.
No.
Defense sacked Eli 3 times, forced 2 turnovers, and got the shutout. That's all you can really ask for. And they get the Redskins next week with Josh Johnson starting. So you're going to start him next week as well. On the Giants side, game can be thrown out for everyone except for Evan Ingram. I told you to sit him, and you ended up being a top 4 or 5 tight end this week. Caught 8 receptions, 75 yards on 12 frickin' targets. The one I want to call out for the biggest surprise, though, was Barkley laid an egg in this one. 56 total yards on 18 touches. I think he can be back to at least close to normal strength against the Colts next week, though.
It's bound to happen. It's very difficult to be that.
To be 100 yards plus every single game.
It's still tough.
And I don't really want to spend any more time on the Giants because they were pretty awful otherwise. Dan, you're going to finish off us before we get to the beer review here. Jaguars versus the Redskins. The Redskins went on a last-second field goal to win 16-13 in a straight-up barn burner.
Josh Jackson did his best.
Josh
Johnson did his best Lamar Jackson impression. See, I don't really care about him anyways. 151 passing yards, 49 rushing yards, touchdown on 25 attempts. Tennessee next week. Rushing yards will always give him some floor, but no, I don't want to play him. Peterson finally got some touches again. He had 21 to be exact for 71 yards. Thompson continues to disappoint since his return from injury. 6 touches for 13 yards in this game. Titans have a good to great run defense, so I'm not really playing any of them because the team's pretty one-dimensional. Targets were all spread around for this one. The most went to Jamison Crowder with 4. He went 4 for 46 on them. No other pass catcher had more than 20 yards, and Jeremy Sprinkle, a Hopper man crush from last year, had a touchdown catch. Defense did its job though, 2 turnovers, 6 sacks, 13 points allowed. Moving on to Jacksonville, Kessler is hot fucking garbage, and you can tell that Jacksonville's trying to tank and lose because there's no way that you could keep Cody Kessler out there if you're trying to be competitive in games. Speaking of tanking, Fournette finished with 14 touchdowns, and I heard he had just 1 in the second half.
14 touches.
14 touches. Touchdowns would be pretty sweet though.
I would have been eliminated in one matchup if that had happened.
14 touchdowns. I heard just 1 in the second half. He finished with 64 total yards. No, I said touches.
No, you didn't.
I didn't. I said he finished with 14 touches.
No, you said touchdowns again, I promise you.
I said touches, but
You said 14 touchdowns, just 1 in the second half.
Either way, I know what I said.
13 first half touchdowns.
13 first half touchdowns.
Makes the Jamala cost look pretty pathetic.
But we got to ask the question about Fournette. If you're a Fournette owner, how much are you trusting him going into a plus matchup against the Dolphins next week?
Considering apparently they only gave him 1 touch, is he's going to be limited with a foot injury. It may be a TJ Yeldon week.
Yeah, just 4 touches in this game.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
And Hyde was a healthy scratch.
Jesus, I don't know what they're doing either. Kessler needs to get hurt, and Blake Bortles just needs to come back.
Probably keep his dead lifeless body as a quarterback still. That would happen.
Right, because Cody Kessler has totally been the answer. It's gotten actually worse than what it was before. As for Leonard Fournette, I don't know that I trust him. Ask me again like Thursday when the injury news is out and stuff.
Yeah. I made this.
I'll ask you Wednesday or Friday because we don't record on Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean Dan can't like text me. Like, hey, how you feel about Fournette?
That's right. I can do that. I'm going to do that now. Anyways, when your quarterback only throws the ball 17 times for 57 yards, no receiver can really do anything with that. Westbrook led the team with 5 targets. Moncrief had a goose egg.
He had a return touchdown though.
But the DSC showed up. As Hopper just mentioned, Westbrook gave you a punt return for a touchdown. So if you played them and hopefully your league scored in that way, you can get rewarded for that touchdown.
They didn't do much otherwise. It would have been pretty disappointing if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, 3 sacks. That's it. After that, that's it for that amazing barn burner of a game.
Beer review.
right. What did you guys think of Oskar Blues Death by Coconut?
Very good. Very as advertised. It's more of a dark chocolate than a sweet chocolate you get in the middle of it. It starts and finishes with coconut. I don't know how they did that, but it's like chocolate sandwich between coconut to me.
It tastes like a pina colada.
A little bit.
Like, I get that feel. It tastes like
If you get
summertime on a beach.
if you get a chocolate pina colada, that's what you're drinking.
It is remarkably
Bit of
good.
roastiness at the end too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts like fresh coconut and ends toasted coconut.
From the lightly coffee roasted that's in there. Chocolate sticks out a little bit. Mostly on the back end for me. It kind of fades with the coconut taste on the back end.
Super easy drinking. Man, I
think it's fucking delicious.
I am cracking the second one during the game tonight
I'm gonna
because I'm gonna need it.
Yes.
I wish I had a second one. I'll find something though.
So yeah, Oskar Blues, they have a pretty wide distribution. They're nowhere near us, so if you're anywhere in the area, go check them out. Highly recommend this one. That is Death by Coconut. And Oskar Blues has been pretty awesome, I think, for almost everything we've had from them.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been good. I've been excited for them.
All right, let's get to what may have been the most exciting game of the week. Hopper, you've got Seahawks going into San Francisco to play the 49ers. 49ers win this one 26-23 in overtime, mostly on the leg of Robbie Gould.
Yep, Robbie Gould did win this one for him, but as I don't even know what sentence I was trying to make. Let's just jump straight into the Seahawks. Russell Wilson gave you a passes for a standard quarterback day this week, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns. Threw the ball over 30 times in a close game. Not something he does most weeks. Chris Carson, easily the best back that they had. He was exceptional against the mediocre 49ers run defense, 22 carries, 119 yards, 1 touchdown. Seattle continues to run the ball, and they continue to run the ball effectively. I don't expect that to change at all. Chris Carson's a must-start. Doug Baldwin led the receivers in this one. Just 6 targets. He got 4, about 77 yards and 2 touchdowns for easily his best game of the season. Lockett, on the other hand, kind of a dud after I think called 2 weeks now for him to be a star. 2 for 45 yards. So that was our bad. I think more specifically my bad.
It was mine. It was my start of the week.
Oh, I was hyping him up for you too.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great matchup. Just didn't pan out.
Yep. And then no tight end deserves a mention here. And the defense really for a plus matchup did not perform all that well.
All right, on to the 49ers.
On to the 49ers. Nick Mullins was solid, 20-29, 275 and a touchdown. Not really a startable quarterback one in most places, but fine for a quarterback two. He continues to be impressive. Matt Breida got the bulk of the carries at 17, but turned it into just 50 yards. He did add 5 receptions for 46 yards for a solid floor day. It's 96 total yards for those counting at home. Jeff Wilson was involved also, but that was just to the tune of 7 carries. He did go for 46 yards on those 7 carries, but he fumbled and then got banished. Dante Pettis is once again the leading wide receiver and wide receiver target getter, but only 5 targets in this one. Made the most of it, going for 83 yards, which is kind of what you want. It wasn't a blow-up game, but he didn't kill you if you decided to start him. And then for the tight ends, Kittle, usual solid self, 3 receptions for 51 yards. Would have been a much better day, but Garrett Selleck got in the way a little bit. 2 receptions, 61 and a touchdown for Selleck. So some very defined 49ers pieces next week that we'll talk about more later in the week.
All right, let's move on to Patriots versus the Steelers, which this was not the barn burner we were looking for. Steelers win this one 17-10. On to the Patriots side, where Brady started off awesome. He threw a 63-yard touchdown pass to Chris Hogan on their 3rd play from scrimmage, 72 total yards on the drive. And then after that, he had 270 yards and an interception. He's actually been kind of bad lately, and against the Bills next week, which have a pretty good pass defense, you do not want to start Brady.
He wasn't very good against them when they played him, I think, back in week 6 or 7 either. So
yeah, Actually, I'm just going to straight up say it. I would just drop Brady unless you have no other options at quarterback.
You could have dropped him a while ago. He's had 1 good game. That was last week.
This was kind of the one I was looking at like, hey, he probably can put up some points in this one. If he can't do it here, throw him. Yeah. Run game was mostly quiet. It was mostly just due to too much split workload happening. Michelle gave you 59 yards on 13 touches. Burkhead was 7 for 43. White was 7 for 37. Slightly easier matchup next week against the Bills, who are not the best run defense, but still, with all the split work that's going on, it hurts all three of them. If you started a wide receiver in this game, I really hope it was Edelman and not Gordon. Edelman gave you 7 for 90 on 11 targets. He was blowing up all game. Gordon, on the other hand, 1 of 2 for 19 yards. This should have been a great matchup for Gordon. I have no idea what happened. And then Gronk also disappeared, caught 2 of 5 for 21. And next week, they both have some real tough matchups.
The offense just isn't good. I mean, it's run balance with it. That's not being very productive anyways.
Yeah, they're not taking advantage of red zone opportunities. They're making mistakes. They're not able to sustain drives. Not an elite offense.
But yet, they'll show up in the playoffs.
Well, they're not going to get a bye.
Right now, they don't. Texans have that spot.
Defense managed 2 sacks and 2 turnovers. We're holding the Steelers to 17 points. So if you started them, not bad. And they finished the season at home against the Bills. For the Steelers, Big Ben was solid but not spectacular. 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks on 34 attempts. Wasn't the top 5 finish we were looking for, but still a quarterback one day, right?
If probably low end if it is. Well, it might be mid to low.
Barely missed. He was,
what, 13?
Like 14.
Okay.
Just behind Nick Mullins.
Like we drew it up.
Jalen Samuels, though, had an awesome game in here. 172 total yards and 21 touches. I think it was Hopper who called out that the Patriots have really struggled against running backs lately. He put that how bad they've been just on film for everybody to see.
Yeah, he did. It was Jalen Samuels, too. It's not like a who's who of running backs. Steelers system.
Yeah,
Very good.
it works.
Yep.
If Connor misses week 16, Samuels is going to be a great opportunity to get some work. It's a tough matchup at the Saints, but he'll probably be still in the running back 3 conversation. I do think Connor's going to be back, though, so you probably won't have any ability to start him.
We'll see if they actually move away from him or if they do maybe of the Kamara and Ingram type of splits.
They just don't do split backfields. They said they were going to split between Samuels and Ridley got like 5 touches a game.
That's because it's fucking Ridley. I mean, both Connor and Samuels. I'm just saying that if Samuels has shown enough that you could see it again with Connor.
We've seen this before when they had Bell and D'Angelo Williams.
Who was Williams' backup then? Exactly. No one knows who the backup was, so of course he showed out because they're very good.
Yeah, but they had D'Angelo Williams with Le'Veon Bell.
And he didn't get any work.
And they didn't give D'Angelo Williams any work either.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
it's always one guy.
It's not saying that Samuels is not shown enough. It's just saying that the Steelers don't do it.
Yeah,
and Nick makes the perfect point with D'Angelo Williams. He showed out. He played incredibly well and went straight back to the bench when the starter got there.
Yep. On to the receiving game where Brown and Smith-Schuster are both quieter than I expected with a couple near misses preventing bigger games. Brown caught a touchdown to save his day. Bigger takeaway I had from more of a dynasty aspect was Washington finally showing up in the deep game. He had a couple really nice catches on his way to a 365-0 game on 4 targets. Hopefully we see a little bit more from him as well because he made a couple nice plays and showed that good ball tracking skill that he has. Defense held the Patriots to 10 points. I don't know anybody who would have been crazy enough to start him, but congratulations if you did. No interest when they go on the road against the Saints, though, next week.
The first 5 minutes of this game felt like it was going to be a shootout.
Yep, both teams scored touchdowns in the first about, 5 or 7 minutes, and then
it was like buckle up, here we go.
And then just nothing.
Well, both teams have struggled.
All right.
As well.
Yeah. Well, a game that we thought was going to be an ass whooping, and this one actually turned into a decent game. Eagles versus the Rams. Eagles win 30-23. Dan, finish us up with Sunday Night Football.
All right, we'll start with the Eagles here. Nick Foles did nearly everything you wanted him to outside of scoring a touchdown, 270 passing yards, 1 interception on 31 attempts. If it wasn't for the 3 running back rushing touchdowns, he could have had a good day here. Texans next week, if you want to keep riding the chances that Nick Foles is going to have one of his usual blow-up games. Running game here, with Adams getting hurt, he was kind of banged up throughout the game, finished with 15 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown. Wendell Smallwood does what he always does, flashing games in which no one started him. 12 touches for 57 yards, but had 2 touchdowns. Sproles
why would you have, though, honestly?
Yeah.
Why would you have started Wendell Smallwood? But whenever he gets the opportunity, he shows.
Yeah. When no one wants to play him, and then when he becomes a starter, he had had some good games this year. Either way, Sproles was the most efficient of these backs. 6 touches for 46 yards. Texans are a difficult matchup for running backs, though, and they can be exposed by patch-catching backs. So, but Adams doesn't get a lot of pass-catching work with him being in and out of the matchup, and the Eagles still fighting for a playoff spot. I expect him to play next week, likely in RB3. If that were to happen, Smallwood and Sproles are kind of back to just being on the bench because they don't get enough touches. Moving on to the receivers, Jeffrey had himself a very nice day. All he needed was a touchdown to make it amazing. Caught all 8 of his targets for 160 yards. The Texans do have a banged-up secondary, and there is some upside with Jeffrey and Foles. Got to see it last year in the playoffs. They didn't get to play with each other in the first couple weeks this season. So we could be seeing Mr. Alshon Jeffrey going out and winning some people some championships if you want to throw him out there against a banged-up, unbeatable Texans secondary. Tay caught all 5 of his targets for 43 yards. Aguilar is back to his rookie in year 2 form, 1 catch on 2 targets. The biggest disappointment, though, is Zach Ertz. He had 7 targets, but he only caught 3 of them for 22 yards. Thankfully, he gets the Texans next week. So if you survive the dud from him, you should be rewarded for a lot better and bounce-back matchup. Defense did better than expected. 2 interceptions and 1 sack, still they did allow 23 points. Moving on to the Rams, Goff continues to struggle down the stretch here. 339 passing yards, 11 rushing, 2 interceptions on 54 attempts, no touchdowns and 6 interceptions on his last 100 attempts. He's only thrown 1 touchdown over his past 3 games. He gets the Cardinals next week, who gave up a 3-touchdown day to Matt Ryan on Sunday. Are we trusting Goff at all in this matchup?
I don't think you can. He's just been so bad for, 3 straight games now?
He's been very, very off for the last 3 games.
Yeah.
I think he misses Cooper Kupp.
I think this whole
Just
offense,
a much. Just a bit.
he misses his binky.
He does.
He does. I'm pretty sure he does.
Todd Gurley was great, though. 22 touches, including 10 of those as receptions for 124 total yards. 2 rushing touchdowns. Though the biggest news here is that he got banged up in the middle of the game. He played through most of it. I think he only missed 1 series. And because the Rams lost, they'll likely have to be fighting for that first round bye still. But with how bad the Cardinals are. Wow. Do you think there's a chance that the Rams sit Gurley?
I don't think they necessarily sit him, but I could see you getting through like halfway through the second quarter. Rams are up by 21 and they just sit him.
It may not even be in. It may not even be Gurley putting up those
if
points.
Malcolm Brown was healthy, yes. But without Malcolm Brown, I don't know there's anybody behind them that they trust. They clearly don't trust John Kelly because he's not even getting looks right now.
He got a couple in this one.
And speaking of the backups, John Kelly and Justin Davis, who was the other backup for them, I think saw 3 carries. John Kelly got the most work and got the work down the stretch and spell work of Gurley, but he toughed through it. And I think you guys are right. I think they'll try to use him, but if they're up early, he could be benched.
Yeah,
pretty
or
early.
They may not even try to lean on him. They may rotate him out more than normal. You don't want to risk him getting banged up more in that match.
You want him healthy for the playoffs, and I know it comes down to of course you want a first round bye for that extra week of rest, but you don't want him to get further injured in what should be a very winnable match.
I mean, basically, the Bears need to win out, and the Rams need to lose out. I think for them to be
they need to lose one of 2.
Bears need to win out, and the Rams need to lose one of 2.
One of 2.
And
But it's the Cardinals and the 49ers.
Right. The Bears have the Vikings in week 17.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think that you don't risk Gurley. I agree with Dan's point. They still use him. I don't think he sits completely, but I don't think he gets 25, 30 touches either.
Yeah.
He could be around 50.
So again, he brought you back probably to the championship week with his blow-up week, but it's gonna be a very difficult decision for Gurley owners. I think most are going to play him.
I mean, I think most you're going to do you're going to start him, and then you're just going to watch with that butthole clenched.
You're going to pray. All right, we'll move on to the receivers here as we wrap this up. Reynolds led the team with 12 targets, caught 5 for 70. Woods was second with 9, 7 for 74 on those. Everett and Cook had 7 apiece. Cook finished 6 for 59. Everett 5 for 46. A bit disappointing for Cook owners, as this was a very good matchup for them. He's averaging 7 targets over his past 3 games. But in this past 2, he's been held under 10 yards per reception, so not using him downfield as much. As we just talked about with the banged up Gurley, they may choose to go more vertical heavy. I expected them to do the same thing in this matchup against a very, very banged up Philadelphia secondary. With Goff struggling, they may still want to lean on Gurley, but if he's banged up, you never really know. Cook should be Woods should be the safest one here as he continues to get heavy target volume. And then Josh Reynolds at least struggled a little bit with some actualness, but I think the interesting point is who's going to get Patrick Peterson for most of next week's game.
Since Woods plays out of the slot, I'd expect it's probably Cooks.
Yeah. Defense sucked in this one, but again, great matchup next week against the Cardinals, and that's it.
All right, let's talk some injuries, starting with Todd Gurley, who we just mentioned. Just came out a report that it is a knee inflammation injury. He is expected to be day-to-day. Aaron Jones' knee with the MCL, I think he's likely done for the season. It has not been confirmed yet, but I'd be amazed if he plays in Week 16 for you.
I don't think he does. It's Jamal Williams or bust for the Packers.
Good for your bibs.
All right. Start me if you've heard this one before. Matt Breida re-injured his ankle in the last series of the game.
Raise your elbow.
Surprise. Breida is like the running back version of Julio Jones. Always beat up, but he hasn't missed a whole lot.
I don't think he's missed
played
one game?
He's played in all but one game, hasn't he?
Yeah. Which I'd prefer he just heals up because Joe Wilson is fine as a backup.
Yeah.
Lamar Miller ankle was out, missed the entire game outside of because he put up a 0, I think.
No, I think he had something. I thought he had like some yards.
Okay, it was like less than 1 though.
Yeah, it was not good.
He had 8 yards.
Okay, so 0.8. So he and Jones had the same finish.
Yeah, 0.8 points.
All right, Josh Adams back. He did play through it, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he did not look good doing it.
No, he did
Yeah,
not.
Smallwood suddenly started looking better, which is a scary thought.
It wasn't much better.
Continuing with the running backs, Ito Smith, knee, headed to injured reserve.
Tevin Coleman show.
Tevin Coleman.
Frank Gore, ankle, foot. He is likely done for the year.
May you rest in peace, RB2.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he wants to see this is the exact quote was he's going to see if surgery is required or not and get rehabbing for 2019. So it sounds like he is going to come back.
Zombie of Frank
until nobody wants him.
Yep.
Everybody wants him.
He's going for that rushing record. God damn it.
He wants it.
Marcus Murphy dislocated his elbow, straight to IR.
Was it Keith?
Keith Ford.
If Ford was the backup.
If McCoy or Ivory can't go.
Yeah.
At wide receiver, you got an MCL on Tyler Boyd. Week to week, he's probably done for the year.
Yep.
And then Randall Cobb is in the concussion protocol.
Of course he is.
Of course.
For tight ends, Vernon Davis and Nick Boyle are both in the concussion protocol.
Jeremy Sprinkle.
Jeremy Sprinkle.
Yeah, Jeremy Sprinkle. Actually, I like his athletic profile. And Dan said I was a fanboy of his in 2017. I absolutely was.
That's right.
I just don't know how much I want to start him with Josh Johnson
I'm
throwing
not
him
saying
the
you have to.
football.
I mean, there's nothing about actually, playing him, but we're still gonna shout it out.
Interesting player to add though in Dynasty with Vernon Davis being ancient and Jordan Reed being on a possible out on his contract.
Yeah.
He really is. Yeah, he was in the same vein as like Johnny Smith was from that year to me
And then
when he was drafted because Jordan Reed's career was in question.
And then Tyler Conklin too. Hopper pointed out way back in that review. Rudolph probably isn't going to be back next year. His contract's done after this year.
Well, and Nick was a big fan of Tyler Conklin's, I believe.
Yeah, you can tell by me owning him in like every one of our Dynasty leagues.
Right.
Bit of a fanboy.
Just some quick Dynasty notes for you guys out there.
All right. A couple waiver ads for this week. First, for quarterback, the big ones I've got is Nick Foles. He actually has a decent matchup in the Texans in Week 16.
Have fun with that. I don't know if I want to clench my butthole to Nick Foles again.
Oh, there's a lot of real bad options in Week 16.
I know.
And then Derek Carr, as mentioned before, is a possible option.
Against the Broncos?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
For running backs, Jamal Williams, if he got dropped, which he did in a lot of places, Jones is likely out a few weeks.
He'll likely be your number one ad against a very beatable Jets defense.
He probably should be your number one ad.
Yep, he definitely is. Deonta Foreman, Alfred Blue. Miller could miss next week, and they may activate Deonta Foreman for this next game.
Blue's so gross, though.
That's why I'm hoping they activate Deonta Foreman.
I don't ever want to have my
But
fantasy.
who knows what type of condition he's in.
Yeah, I don't want my fantasy championship riding on Alfred Blue.
With
Or
the
do
way
they have
with the way
Foreman?
some teams are right now, they might be like, you know what, fuck it, let it
Oh,
ride.
there's going to be teams out there that play him.
Well, it depends on the severity, though, of Miller's injury.
True.
Also, they may activate Foreman anyway.
Elijah McGuire.
Yeah. Very beatable Packers run defense, actually.
Yep, and he should see 80% of the work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kalen Ballage with Gore's injury.
They've got Jacksonville. I don't know how much I want that.
I mean, I don't want it, but if you need a starting
it's
running
a
back,
dynasty ad more so because of the uncertainty of Gore.
I mean, in any sort of decent sized dynasty league, should have been owned already.
Should be, but you never know.
Wendell Smallwood, if Josh Adams' injury is significant, he's the between the tackles guy over Sproles.
Yep.
Yep.
We're back to him again.
John Kelly, Justin Davis, if Gurley is not on track.
Lean John Kelly, all Gurley owners should likely lean. He got majority of the spell work.
He had 2 of 3.
No, that's just touches. He out-snapped
Okay, you're saying
Davis
snaps.
too.
Got it. Anything else on running backs that I missed?
No.
For wide receivers, Mike Williams, if he wasn't owned already, in case Allen misses time.
Yep.
Even Tyrell Williams
Yep.
is a ad.
They might be more against Baltimore. It'd be tough, but yep.
Robert
Yep.
Foster is still not 100% owned.
Go get him
against the Patriots especially.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Anderson has been looking pretty good these last 2 weeks.
Yep. Packers are beatable.
Deshaun Hamilton and to go with it, Tim Patrick are both looking pretty solid for the.
You go out and get them against the Raiders.
Against the Raiders, absolutely.
Especially Deshaun Hamilton.
And then it makes me gross to say it, but he's still under 50% owned. Curtis Samuel.
He's showing out. You could have a good game this week, too.
They got the Falcons. Granted, Falcons have been pretty good against wide receivers lately.
All right. For tight ends, Ian Thomas is still under 50% somehow.
Fix that shit.
And then
Yeah.
Gerald. Oh, yeah. And then Gerald Everett is looking like he may have taken over for the Rams.
They were targeting the crap out of him when it mattered most last night.
I'm just 54 attempts for Goff. But hey, banged up Gurley, they may have to lean on the receiving game more. So I like that call.
Banged up Gurley, no Cooper Cup.
All right. And some quick cuts before we get out of here.
Weekly cuts.
All right. Carson Wentz isn't going to get a start for the rest of the season.
Peace.
Bye.
Justin Jackson with Gordon Eckler likely back. You wouldn't start him, so there's no reason to hold on to him. Yep.
Nope.
You're not. The only reason you're holding people is if you're blocking your opponent. You're not holding people that are just fringe players in week 16.
Yep.
Isaiah Crowell, he's done for the year.
Yep.
Aaron Jones likely done for the year.
Wait to see that he's out for the year.
I think
drop
I
him.
think we'll get confirmation tomorrow
That's
that,
what I'm saying.
that he's done.
Just
I
wait.
don't think he plays in week 16. Even if
Yeah, I know. I know.
Ito Smith to IR.
Bye.
Frank Gore.
Rest
See
in
ya.
peace, old man.
Tyler Boyd.
Aw.
It was fun.
It was a great ride.
You were good. I'm sure we'll be talking about you in the offseason.
Yeah, he will
He's
have
a buy candidate for me, so yes.
just a riser too. Just how his season went from just he was being dropped everywhere to being a very solid wide receiver too.
I'm sad I was here early on the hype. didn't renew my subscription.
Same here.
Yep.
Same here.
Vernon Davis concussion and he's old as hell. A couple defenses as well. You're not going to start the Falcons at the Panthers next week. The Bills at the Patriots, even with their offense being pretty meh. And then I would probably even drop the Ravens at the Chargers.
Yep.
Rest of week preview. Wednesday we'll be back with our extended start sits, and then our Thursday and Saturday previews for you guys. We'll have our weekly preview. It sounds like Saturday morning. Look for that episode to drop.
Yes.
And then Sunday
Yep.
we'll be back QA. Is Dan going to be able to join us or no?
I will be gone Wednesday and Sunday episodes.
Okay, so we will figure that out. But Hopper and I will be here Sunday morning for you guys. Get that set for you guys. Get all your Week 16 questions answered. I'm sure Hopper and I will also be a big ball of stress with you guys. So if you just want to have somebody else who's on the same level you are before Christmas and stressed for a very different reason, we'll be there to help you out.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So shout out from Beerfield FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. Thank you for all the questions on the YouTube channel. You can find us there, Beerfield Fantasy Football. We got Christopher Hopper down in St. Louis.
At Hobby FF with TPs. We will catch you guys on Wednesday.
Dan Third, am I right?
30 BFF with 2 Fs.
I'm Nick Sparts. We will be back Wednesday, and we'll catch you guys next time on Beerfield Fantasy Football.
See ya.
Later.
Peace.